Read It and Screech, the podcast.
I gotta tell you something. When Thorne heard me do this, when he was binging these, and he goes, "What the fuck are you saying at the beginning? What is that?"
He didn't know. He didn't pick it up.
And I was like, "Those are the beginnings of the books." He thought I was just saying weird shit.
Did he think it was clever?
No.
Oh.
He was like, "What is that?"
I think it's clever.
It sounds like a stroke is happening at the beginning, and then he was like, "What is that?"
Well, part of that is because you do a terrible job.
I'm trying.
Say it normal.
I can't breathe. For my mother, Catherine Shirley Brom, who always said I could when others said I could not.
God. I'm Gracie. This is my co-host, Eva. This week we present Slewfoot by Brom. This is a witchy book for a witchy season, and also a love story.
Slewfoot is diabolical.
Why?
It sounds like something that came out of a drain.
It's 320 pages, 14 hours, 28 minutes by audio.
Also, he doesn't like that. Every time he hears the length of the audiobook, he goes, "Damn." I don't know either. That's long as fuck.
Narrated by Barry Cranick. The reason I like to do like the thing is because in my head, I'm like, somewhere these are people who thought, I'm never going to get recognition for this.
Hundreds of hours later.
And I'm like, yes, you will. In this podcast.
This is one thing you'll never hear of again.
Goodreads rating is 4.29.
Shout out to that Goodreads rating you paid for.
No, okay, so this was pretty good. This is a historical fiction. I hate historical fiction, but it was good.
Do you want to know? There's a historical fiction that I like. You want to know what it is?
Probably not.
I'm going to tell you.
Is it Outlander?
No.
Is it?
That one is
Game
horrible.
of Thrones?
I thought Game of Thrones was really happening in England. And then
Right now?
No. And then I looked it up, and those were not countries.
No, God, no.
It is England, though. It's flipped upside down. No. So there's this book, and I can't remember what it's called.
Do you want to know what I like? I don't remember.
I remember the plot so in-depthly, though. It was about Lazarus.
Okay.
And because he was brought back to life, he can't die.
Oh.
So he's just alive now. He out here kicking it. He'd been alive for, like, what, 1,000-some years.
Do you know how many TV shows have done that exact plot?
And he's like, I think it was like a detective.
That's not a historical fiction. That's
Yes, it was. Lazarus existed at one point.
No, it's not historical
Have you seen that thing where people talk about how Lazarus was the first zombie?
Yes. I thought Jesus was the first zombie.
No, Lazarus came to
Oh,
life
that's
before
true.
Jesus did.
No.
Jesus was the second zombie. Get your facts straight.
Historical fiction is when they write a fictional story.
And it has some history.
No, a true historical place and time.
Yeah, he was there and then he left.
No. That's
No, and the whole point of the book was you see him in history several times. He's like here, and then it jumps and he's here, and then it jumps and he's here, and then it jumps.
Then you could be like, oh, like Pride and Prejudice was historical fiction. No, it's not.
No, that was completely made up.
Right. So is the book you're describing.
No, he hit history's high points.
Okay.
I can't remember what it's called though. That was a good book.
All right. The setting and point of view. It is.
Since we never talk about good books.
It is third person limited point of view. 1666.
Oh, I'm gonna hate this.
The year of 1666, Connecticut. The main character lives on a farm in the forest. Unbeknownst to her, the land is home to a tree.
Oh! Shit! Unbeknownst to her, the trees grow from the ground!
That is the source of life and magic to the land.
Does grass also grow in this ground?
No, just a tree. The tree has been cut down in a conflict years ago.
So it's not the source of the tree!
Between the indigenous people and the wild folk who are connected to the tree and by proxy the land. There are two main characters and then a third character who just gets mentioned a lot.
Excuse me while I climb into the sniper's nest.
No, this is a really, really good book. It has excellent reviews. The Goodreads ratings were not purchased, I don't think. So the main character is Abatha.
No, okay.
It makes me think of that I took a pill in Ibiza. I took a pill in Ibiza. Abatha. She is an English girl who was sold off to a rando in Connecticut, his name is Edward, by her drunkard, grieving father. Her mother died from the plague, but not before teaching her some light witchcraft in the sense that praying to the Christian God while learning medicine is witchcraft. And then the second character I will call Daddy.
We just learned her daddy. What the fuck?
Daddy is an earth.
Daddy is Edward.
Is an earth spirit who was manipulated by little demons.
What's his real name?
Look at there. He was manipulated by these little demons called the wild folk into killing a bunch of indigenous people who were trying to live off the land. He was so distressed by his actions that he sought out a shaman with supernatural powers to put him to sleep so that he wouldn't kill any more people.
Is he the tree?
Then we have Wallace.
That seems like yes.
No. Then we have Wallace, her brother-in-law, who is just an all-around piece of shit.
Does he have a dog named Gromit?
No, he's her brother-in-law, who is an all-around piece of shit. So in the beginning, Abatha chases her goat into a cave on her property, and he falls into a cavern. Her husband gives her an awkward fatherly hug and says it's okay. His brother, Wallace, visits and shits on his brother for being nice to the wife. He says he's going to sell their farm out from under them to pay a bunch of debt that he incurred without their knowledge. And he says, no, don't worry. You can still live here. You'll just have to work off my debt while you're here. Abatha says, fuck you and the pussy you came from for selling your brother and our collective work to pay off your own debt.
Yeah, only sell it for our debt. What?
Brother Wallace says, okay, well, you're a witch then, and tells her he will report her to the authorities.
That is the same vibe. You're just a witch because you don't agree with me is the exact same vibe as when we used to go for a walk and guys would rev their truck engines at us and we would say no thank you and they say, well, you're ugly. That's the same.
Is that why you were revving your truck to tell me I was ugly?
Right, you're just ugly then. Okay, thanks.
Did you stop me to tell me I'm
right,
ugly? That's
you stopped
weird.
me to tell me I'm ugly. Well, you don't agree with me? You're a witch. Okay, thanks.
So he says, well, you're a witch then, and tells her he will report her to the authorities, and that's not good because she's already on probation for not holding her tongue. Edward begs his brother not to report Abatha for having an opinion and makes her apologize, and he agrees.
I used to think that they meant literally hold your tongue.
Yeah. Well, I think sometimes they did. Wallace agrees not to report her, but not before saying that she needs to be beat and put in the stocks for days for making eye contact with him while she apologizes.
Fair. I wouldn't have done that.
The next morning, they rush to church. Abatha is trying to get there before brother-in-law Wallace does so that they can get ahead of whatever shit-talking and gaslighting he has planned in regard to selling them into indentured servitude to pay his debts off. She's afraid that he's going to convince them to have her publicly flogged for having her own thoughts and feelings. She's in luck because there's already someone in the village stocks. It's this poor guy who has been beat to shit and had manure rubbed into his hair.
Ew!
He's been left in the cold all night for missing Wednesday night Bible study to take a nap. Abatha and Edward's nieces waddle up behind them and shit on her for feeling bad for him. And then all the town children gather around and throw poop at him.
Whenever someone goes, I'm born in the wrong generation, I think about people like that.
Oh, me too. Everyone sits down for the service, and this other poor guy runs in late and says he has a good reason to be late because he saw 2 cats on the way to church. Cat guy has to kneel on the wood floor in the front of the chapel for the rest of the 3-hour service. She gets bored mid-sermon and starts leering at the town sheriff, which causes her loins to burn.
Ew!
After the service, she and Edward run to catch the preacher after church, and one of her friends pulls her to the side to get a love charm that Abatha made her. So it turns out she's a witch. She's not just doing medicine and praying to God. The pastor's wife also catches her, but turns out she only wants to tell her to knock it off and to shit on her for a piece of hair falling out of her bonnet that could cause her brothers in Christ to stumble. She says that long hair is a tool of the devil.
Then why does it grow out of your head like that?
When they finally get over to the Reverend to work out the issue with the land, he tells them that although the land was technically the older brother's, he can't promise it to Edward, but then also promise it to someone else to pay off the debt. So he's very chill about it, and Wallace has a man tantrum but can't do anything about it. They get home, and Abatha is happy that everything worked out in their favor, but Edward still feels bad because he's still my family. But they get past it and have a nice time while she reads to him and he draws racy pictures of her.
Ooh, that's why they get in trouble.
They get horny from this and do it while a bunch of spiders convene in their house.
Nope. Eject. All done. All done. No more. Book over. All done. Oh my God, I hate it.
So the next day they go back to the pit to look around, and Edward chides her for using protection charms before getting lured into the...
I'm sorry, I would use them all if spiders were convenient to watch me do anything.
Right. So she had like...
I also learned today that those big outdoor projectors summon wolf spiders.
Interesting.
And then they all gather on the thing and go,
oh no, rather not.
Fuck that.
Rather not. So she had like put this charm on the wall of the cave that they were looking around in because it gave her the creeps. And he was like, don't do that, witchcraft. So she takes it down. And as soon as she takes it down, he gets lured into the pit by the demon children, wild folk. So while this is happening, the brother-in-law, Wallace, goes behind their backs to the village elders to try to get them to go back up to the original arrangement because he's trash. And then he goes to find Abatha and Edward to try to convince them to give 25% of the farm's profits to him for the next 10 years to pay off his debt. He finds Abatha screaming for Edward, and everyone immediately presumes he's dead. They have a full-on funeral and bury an empty casket instead of verifying his death and then go about their lives. She said that he died because he was nice to her and not ugly. And on the way home, the ministers and elders of the town and her brother-in-law accost her and tell her that Wallace has graciously offered to let her be his live-in maid while she waits to be pawned off on her next husband. She tells them that she's obligated to fulfill her husband's legacy by keeping his farm going, and the chill Reverend says that she's right and she can stay in her home. So Wallace has another man tantrum, and when she tells him to stay the fuck away from her, he tries to have her arrested, but Reverend Chillpill says that she has a right to stand up for herself. Wallace says, when you get hungry and cold later, don't come crawling to me.
Okay, do many people? Are your doors just like... Boom, 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 boom. The amount of people who are like, we're hungry and cold, we're hungry and cold. Fuck out of here. Answer the door. No, that's so annoying.
So, in the forest, Daddy climbs out of the pit, and the wild folk tell him to get to work offing more of the villagers. He makes his way to Abatha's farm, and she's doing her best to work on the farm. And
so he's a serial killer now?
Maybe so. Her best is not great, but she's not about to go live at Wallace's and be his maid. So Daddy and the wild folk find her, and there's a huge ruckus that includes 1 million spiders and a sexually charged...
I don't want to read this!
And a sexually charged hug.
No.
Before she passes out and wakes up with a gash in her head.
Pinnacle of romance.
She runs to the house and grabs this old charm that her mother left her that's made of the hair of her mother and great-grandmother, 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 etc.
Hair doesn't last that long.
It does if it's magic. Wallace comes to the farm. He says he's going to marry her off to his son/her nephew, even though the nephew already has a girlfriend. She says, no, fuck you. And he hits her, but she threatens him with a pitchfork, and he insinuates he's going to come back and kill her.
And he's Frankenstein, so that works.
Daddy and the wild folk watch the whole thing.
That's not that man's name. Be so for real.
They call him Father. So I call him Daddy.
First off, I just need to tell you that this is the exact plot of Game of Thrones, and they... It is. They have you haven't seen it. They have a whole group of people called the Wildlings. They dance around a magic tree.
Do they really? Okay.
They're children.
Okay, well.
They're children.
Are they in America? No, they're in England, upside down. Daddy and the wild folk watch the whole thing, and she throws salt on him and tells him to get the hell off the farm. And he gets a headache and keeps having hallucinations about spiders and demons. So he goes back to his cave, and the wild folk explain that he's out of sorts because they brought him back from the dead.
That happens in there too.
After the indigenous people killed him a long time ago, and he's probably still connected to the afterlife.
That happens in that too.
A bunch of ghost demons come out of the woods, and he chases them and is gone for a month. The wild folk look for him but can't find him. They insinuate that they've been lying to him to make him do their bidding. In the meantime, Abatha has gotten better at working the farm, but she's been having weird dreams and wonders if she has witchy gifts like her mother and grandmother, because she's seeing weird things all the time.
Because she ate all that hair.
She didn't eat the hair. Where did you get that from?
I don't know.
No. Wallace comes to shit on her some more, and she can't decide which devil is worse, the one in the woods or the one at church.
I have news for you.
It's
always the one at church.
It's the one at church for sure.
Try the one in the woods.
The Reverend's wife takes her aside and tells her that she's proud of her for being so brave and working the farm, and warns her that
you give a fuck what this woman says.
I'll tell you if you let me visit the bed.
I don't like the bed. Doesn't think long hair is okay.
I know, right?
Her.
She warns her that the men are planning to make her an indentured servant if she doesn't have a successful crop.
And she doesn't cut her hair.
Right? And she gives her some food, so she's pretty chill like her husband. Aside from the hair comment, but otherwise.
If I cut my hair, what would I put in my weird hairball jar?
Well, I thought you were going to say my weird hair dinner.
That's what I was going to say.
Hair snack.
Girl dinner!
Wallace has another meeting with some of the town elders, and they tell him that as long as she doesn't turn the crop, they'll wait until later in the year to take the farm from him. And they're planning to kick the Reverend out of the church because they don't like that he is progressive and respectful to women. On the way home from church, Daddy follows her, but is distracted by some youths, which he kills, and then joins a wolf pack hunting and killing people for another month.
Be so for real. That's like a different book. I'm just gonna do this. I don't know what the fuck.
He runs into a little boy who gives him some berries, and he starts having flashbacks of people.
Plays a game of jacks. I don't know. Goes to school, gets a degree. What are we doing?
Starts having flashbacks of people being nice to him and giving him gifts.
Invents cars.
The boy's grandmother is horrified and tells him he's Satan before she keels over and has a heart attack. This is news to him, and when the little boy runs away, he steals the berries and goes back to the woods to find Agatha.
I didn't know.
Seems like Satan would steal some berries from a child, though.
Seems like Satan would have known he was Satan.
There has been no rain in months at this point, so Agatha is having to water her crops by hand all day, every day, and she loses her bucket down the well and then contemplates just throwing herself down into it so that her corpse ruins it. When Wallace takes the farm, the whole water supply will be ruined.
Fair.
Daddy finds her right when she passes out after almost falling in. When she wakes up, the bucket is back beside her, along with the bucket of berries that Daddy stole from the little boy whose grandmother had just died in front of him. She sees him slip into the barn and follows him into it with her musket. He tells her he needs help with something, and she asks what, and he says IDK and runs off.
Will run.
Right. She thinks that maybe she shouldn't accept the berries from Daddy, but she already ate some yesterday, so whatever. He comes back that evening and tells her his name is Father, and she asks if he's Satan, and he can't understand why people keep calling him that.
What's a Satan?
Right? She says, well, you ate my goat and my husband. And he says, that's fair, but I'm just trying to remember who I am. He says he would kill Wallace for her if she helps him.
You know, fair point. If you met Satan, would he know he was Satan?
Mm-hmm.
Does he know what a Satan is?
She says, why should I help you if you just killed my husband? And he says, damn, would you just get over that? And leaves again. And she starts to wonder if he is, drumroll, ready? Faye.
I'm gonna kill myself.
And goes to find him in the forest.
I'm sorry. At no point did you say that this world had that. You said that this was a period drama. Why do we have fairies with glitter buttholes?
We actually don't. It's just I just thought it was funny that she said maybe he's Faye. She goes to find him in the forest with an offering the next day. So he takes her offering and enchants her crops as a thank you.
Oh, I'm not Satan, but this works out. I don't know why.
The wild folk shit on him for helping her instead of killing her, and they decide they're going to have to kill her behind his back since she's taking him away from the killing spree. They all go to her house and tell her about how they killed her goat and husband, and Daddy sends them away and apologizes to her for ruining her life. She tells him that she thinks he's not the devil, but maybe an earth spirit who's supposed to help bringing life to the land. They make a deal that she will give him offerings and he will help her, but she's not going to call him Daddy because that's weird. And so she names him Samson, which was the name of the goat that died.
Ew.
Don't read into it. The deal works and her crops grow, and she leaves milk out for the wild folk every day, but they still don't like her, but they want the milk.
Milk's not great when you're used to eating whole bodies. I usually chow down on a grown man, but I'll just take a little bit of titty milk and just be on my way.
She made an agreement that if she reads the Bible on her own, she can skip church, so she doesn't go back until September. And when she's there, they're all surprised that she's not decrepit, and they're jealous that she didn't have to come to church for all these months. Me too. Right, I would also be jealous.
I'd be lived as fuck. Be throwing rocks at her house.
One of the wild folks sneaks into her house while she's gone to try to hide a copperhead in her closet, but is interrupted by Wallace, who has come to trample the crops while she's gone.
Now, by the way, this person, you know, and they're like, oh, I studied to make this good.
Yeah. Yeah.
You didn't. Agatha and Wallace are not on the same phonetic or time plane.
They probably are.
They're not.
I don't know why it wasn't like Hezekiah or something.
Exactly. Wallace does not exist.
Jethro.
No.
Yep.
Those are not the same. Sorry. You did a bad job. You're welcome.
Her ex-husband's ghost chases off Wallace, and he decides he will just have to bring more and more harm to her because that's what an angel would do.
Yeah, okay.
Samson comes to check on her while she makes a salve to help the Reverend's daughter who has gotten the measles. He asks her why they don't just ask Jesus to help her.
Fair.
They do a ritual to heal her, and then she goes to see the girl, and the ritual works. The Reverend's wife tells her that she doesn't have a problem with witchcraft, but the village does, so she needs to be careful. Wallace will not let up on his crusade against Agatha, and so he hires an indigenous person named Jesus and his friends to steal the corn from her barn. Too bad Wallace is a greedy little bitch, and he loads up too much corn onto the cart, and it breaks, so he decides to just burn the whole barn down. Agatha and Samson catch them, but they're too late, and most of the crop is gone, and she also now has 2 dead people in her barn. The wild...
It's fine. She can just feed them to those people who have only been drinking drinking titty milk.
The wild folk come and say, fuck those people, let's kill them.
They already killed them. She said they were 2 dead people.
No, like the other people.
Oh.
But she's more worried about how she's going to have enough money to just get the fuck out of town at this point. They can't do anything about the crops now because they were already harvested when they were burned, but they do a ritual to make more honey instead.
Oh my god. Is there a ritual to be less of a cunt? If you...
Do you need me to stop saying ritual?
Yes! How is there? Oh, these bad things keep happening. But like, anytime a bad thing happens, you're like, oh, I have a ritual that will fix it. Okay, how about you did that before? How about you did a protection spell once the barn full of corn and grain? Protection spell on barn. Like, fuck yourself. I hate you.
He is the devil. He's not a fortune teller.
He's not the devil. We already said that.
Right.
Literally,
he's daddy. He's not a fortune teller.
Eat your heart out. This is the dumbest thing ever. Assume that the world is full of bad things, and if you need the barn to stay in one piece, protect the barn, you stupid cheating cunt. I can't.
It's good.
No! This is like when, and this happens in mostly Marvel films, but when they're like, oh, I don't kill bad people, and they leave them alive, and then 10 minutes later they come and kill the good guy. I'm sorry, you shouldn't, and then they kill him anyway. They're like, oh, you killed Captain America, fuck you. You could have killed him 6 minutes ago, you stupid bitch!
That's what's called a trope.
Things I hate it. I don't like that. You are a murderer. You do kill people. You were gonna kill him. You could have killed him 10 minutes ago and we wouldn't have had to go to a funeral. Fix the barn! If you say ritual one more time, I'm gonna die.
The wild folk decide that they really need to kill her now.
Oh, okay.
Because she's using all the magic.
Yeah, same. I'm on their side.
To try to fix her fucked up life.
Team wild folk.
So they enchant a bunch of... I had to make sure that didn't say ritual. So they enchant a bunch of snakes to bite her.
Feel same. Me too. Yeah.
And Samson tries to kill the one who did it, but she tells him not to.
She's like, no, I see his point.
On his way back into the forest, he warns Samson and Abatha that the magic is dying, and if it runs
because
out,
she keeps wasting it on stupid shit.
If it runs,
she's like, you know what? I could go to CVS myself, or I could do a ritual. And then she's like, wait, I wasted all the magic. Damn it!
He says that if the magic runs out, Samson will die.
Oh yeah, now you're sad. You wasted it, aren't you? You stupid.
No. Because Samson decides they can fix it through the power of dance.
No, dance is worse.
So they dance naked in the forest.
I'm sorry, his ween is just flopping.
Yeah. So they dance naked. After they do so, she is able to fly on a broomstick, and they fly all around the forest while Samson screams into the abyss asking what he is.
I know.
She wakes up naked in a cornfield and decides that she's going to bury the dead men in the barn on the road right outside the farm to serve as a warning for people not to fuck with her.
She's going to feed them to those poor, hungry titty milk people.
I don't know why she doesn't. Maybe it's because they have to have been murdered in a rage for it to work.
You know what? Beggars can't be choosers. You take what you could get.
It probably has to be done in a ritual.
Oh!
Okay. Wallace already has plans for Abatha, seeing as he thinks he fucked up her whole crop, and so he comes the next day to snatch her up and hopefully publicly humiliate her. The sheriff is skeptical because the barn has been burned down, but Wallace says, oh, she probably did it herself because she's a stupid lady. They tell her that she's under arrest for not paying the debt that Wallace's fuck ass incurred and somehow pawned off on her. Turns out she negotiated the sale of the honey and has the cash to pay off the debt, so she tells them to get the fuck off her property. Obviously, a successful woman must be a witch, so he has another man tantrum and runs off. Samson watched the encounter and asks again if he can just murder Wallace and solve all her problems forever.
Yes.
But she says no.
Yes, and the book is over.
Because she believes that he's a good goat/person, and that would be evil.
You're a good goat person.
Yes.
She's gonna fuck the goat person at some point. I find that unsettling.
Soon after, Samson follows some of the indigenous people to their village to see if they know anything about him.
You shouldn't do that.
Meanwhile, Wallace comes to the farm to get evidence that Abatha is a witch and beats the shit out of her before a bunch of bees attack him to defend her. The evidence in question of her being a witch is a flower crown and a pet cat. He runs off and tells the Reverend that she must be a witch in cahoots with the devil. All the townspeople that she has helped throughout the years come out of the woodwork and snitch on the charms that she's given them. Fucking bitches.
I don't know. To be fair, I was wondering that at the beginning. Maybe that's just me. I don't know why any witches trust people enough to sell them charms.
She gave them.
People be fickle as shit.
So the Reverend is apprehensive of punishing her, but can't do anything about the fact that the whole village has decided that she's a witch. They take a posse to go arrest
First off, what do you mean decided? She is. Where's the lie? Where's the sin? Where's the falsehood?
So they take a posse to go arrest her, and she shoots at them, but she only gets one of them on the ear. And they beat her up and take her into custody. Samson finds the shaman who originally put him to sleep. He lives in a cabin with a bunch of creepy masks/skulls on the wall that turn out to be the skulls of all the wild folk that he has murdered over the years. And the shaman tells him that he and Samson are land spirits who take small offerings and worship from the people in exchange for small favors. He shows him a vision of him slaughtering a village in the past and tells him that the wild folk are responsible for his violent urges and convinces Samson to let him put him to sleep again, turning him into another mask on the wall.
The end.
Abatha wakes up the next day in a cellar. Her leg is fucked up, and they immediately take her to court. They call witnesses whose only expertise is that they're men. The Reverend's daughter testifies that Abatha helped heal her and drags the whole fucking family down with her. Wallace's daughter also puts on a show saying that she was influenced by the witchcraft. They find her guilty, surprise, and sentence her to be hanged. They also charge the Reverend's wife with witchcraft. That was, her daughter dragging the whole family down with her. She gave Abatha snacks and candy when she was trying to fend for herself on the farm. She is also immediately convicted. They kill Abatha's cat and shove the ladies into these tiny crates to prepare to kill them, but the Reverend convinces them to wait until the next day. Abatha tries to pray using the braided charm, the men watching her see it and throw it into the fire. So you should be grateful that her hair charm was destroyed.
Oh, thank God.
The next day, they strip the Reverend's wife naked and cut off all her birthmarks.
Ew!
Trying to get her to confess to helping Abatha, but she doesn't confess to being a witch, so they lock her back in the box for another day. They also put the Reverend in the stocks so that he can't help them anymore. The elders start to have some apprehension about the Reverend's wife because they know since she's a prominent person in the community, the trial will be investigated by the governor, and they try again to make her confess, but she won't because she didn't do fucking shit.
I mean, she did shit.
She just gave her some candy.
That's doing shit. Depends on what you consider shit.
So they tell Abatha that they will kill her quickly if she says that the wife is guilty. And that makes even Wallace nervous because ultimately all of this is his fault. So if the Reverend's wife gets killed, it's low-key him that triggered all this. And they try to coerce a confession from the wife by crushing her with this heavy door while the delusional villagers watch. She caves only because the daughter runs up and begs her to confess so that she doesn't lose both of her parents, which her dad was just in the stocks. Like, it's fine. But
you're right. Fuck her. Fuck that 10-year-old.
The guy who was in charge spits in her face and leaves her in the dirt, but alive.
Well, that's enough of a crime for me. I would be done. Checked out. Eject.
One of the wild folk finds Samson in the cabin and tries to release him from the skull by telling him that Abatha is in trouble and finally telling him the truth about how he's a good earth spirit and the shaman convinced the first indigenous people in the area to drain the magic from the land and from the wild folk. The wild folk were slaughtered, and so the remaining ones put a spell on Samson to make him violent and crazy, and that's why he wanted the big sleep to begin with. So when the shaman put him to sleep, he put his head on the wall, and then when he was resurrected, a part of him was stuck in the mask, and that's why he's been out of sorts this whole time.
That's dumb as hell.
It is.
Okay.
But that's fine. The shaman returns and kills the wild folk that try to save him, but he's too late. Samson breaks out of the mask and they tussle, and he smashes all the masks, releasing the spirits of the wild folk, which kills the shaman because that's where he got all his power. Abatha is strung up in a tree by her ankles for 4 days, waiting to die, while the town...
You would die. You would already die. You would die from that.
Not if your best friend is the devil.
You literally just stated he wasn't the devil.
She's in a situationship with him. Okay.
He's not the devil.
Whatever.
Okay.
She's waiting to die while the townspeople come by and mutilate her whenever they feel a hankering to do so. Right when 2 of them come by and decide to just finally kill her, Samson comes to save her by killing one and maiming the other. Her legs are fucked up and he tells her that she can live as a cripple or drink his blood and he will heal her with a, not ritual. However, if she does so, she will be attached to him and his morally gray agenda forever. Abatha is done taking the high road and is out for their blood. So they do the spell similar to a ritual. And when they do, she becomes connected to the earth and a snake crawls up her vagina.
No, it does not. You're lying. You are lying.
Why would I lie about that?
That's a lie. Yes! I'm going home.
She kills the guard that was watching her and finishes the spell. The ghosts of her ancestors appear and make a new hair charm.
No!
One of the men who tried to kill her escapes and runs screaming, crying, throwing up to tell the elders what happened. They decide that it wasn't the devil that helped her. She must have had an indigenous lover who came to save her.
Oh, yeah, because fuck those people. Rude!
Right? The man who was maimed was also the one that killed her cat. So she kills him next and sets the barn that he was hiding in on fire. The elders ride up and find them and shoot Samson, but he's fine. The wild folk conjure a giant swarm of mosquitoes that crawl up into all of the orifices of the elders.
Nope.
Yes. While Abatha slaughters them with the sword she stole from the guard that she murdered.
With her coochie snake.
She slices open the one who had strung her up and lets the insects crawl inside of him and eat him slowly. She shows mercy to the sheriff, however, because he was kind to her.
Because she thought he was hot at the beginning, that's why.
Right?
Fucking bitch.
And he was nice to her throughout the process of the trial.
Ew!
She finds the Reverend still in the stocks and lets him out, wishing him well.
I wish you well.
Yes.
In hell!
As she goes on her rampage, she finds that her legs have turned into goat's legs. See how it's fine if she fucks him now?
Oh, good.
See how it's fine?
See, I couldn't fix your legs. They were beyond fixable.
Great.
You can have some goat legs.
He tells her that she's not immortal, but because she shares his blood, she can live a very long time if she's careful. She says, I literally don't give a fuck, and I will murder them all.
I have goat legs and a snake in my cooter. I don't think it matters if I live a long time.
She says, I don't care if I go down in the process.
Out of here.
Wallace is home now and low-key scared of his own daughter for the fact that she was able to lie so easily about Abatha. And Abatha walks in, interrupting their dinner, and forces a beetle to come out of the daughter's throat.
At least it wasn't out of her cooter.
Right. And then she carves an L into her forehead.
Loser.
No. For being a little fucking liar while Samson helps himself to their meal.
I want waffle fries. You little fucking loser.
So she summons a bunch of
cooter snakes.
No, a bunch of wood beetles.
This is so bad.
To eat Wallace alive and leaves him to die. The magistrate who was in charge of her trial tries to get the fuck out of town. The wild folk intercept the wagon, running it off the road, and Abatha and Samson are not far behind. She confronts the magistrate and he begs for mercy like a little bitch, but she makes him cut out his own tongue and then leaves him to bleed out.
I have nothing left. I don't want to care about that.
The remaining men in town gather the townspeople together in the church for safety and arm themselves to fight her. The final one responsible for directly trying to kill her tries to run to that church for safety, and she gets shot 6 times trying to catch him.
Oh, well, she was supposed to be careful or she wouldn't live forever.
So the Reverend drags her to safety, and Samson tries to heal her and makes the Reverend pray to his God as well to save her. While she dies, she realizes that God and Mother Earth are the same. Her death is the last straw for Samson, and he decides that he'll be the devil since that's what they say he is. He taunts the men from the shadows, waving a tomahawk, while the men in the church are screaming, crying, throwing up. He summons the demon spirits he ran with for months earlier, and the townsmen have run out of ammunition, which wasn't working anyway. He uses the commotion to set the building on fire and kills anyone who tries to escape. The final man that she wanted to kill gets special treatment, however. Samson carries him along with Abatha's body back to the cave from the beginning. He summons her ancestors and then slits the guy's throat and uses him as a sacrifice to the tree that sources the magic in the forest. Her husband's spirit appears, now at peace, and then fades away. Abatha's eyes open and she gasps for air.
Ew.
The Reverend is spared, and Samson tells him that he must only tell everyone what happened and that the forest is cursed and that people should stay away from the area. 300 years later, some hunters are after the wild folk, not knowing that they're part of this magic forest. They find the cabin where Abatha is alive and well. She invites them in, and they agree, thinking she might fuck them.
Ew.
But they change their mind when they see she has goat legs.
And a snake cooter.
Right? The wild folks surround them, and she gives them a creepy smile and tells them that Samson will be there soon. They say, who is Samson? And she tells them, the devil. The end.
Me and my snake cooter.
First of all, that was so good.
It was not.
Here's what pisses me off about you and everyone else. People will say, oh, like that wasn't good. When things like that one where Peter Pan was spitting in that girl's mouth with her mentally ill mom, things where people are being groomed by their gynecologists, things like that exist. This was good. It was
that
about...
Lazarus book was good. This was weird.
This was good.
A snake was in her pants. I'm done.
Aside from...
No, not when you have to say aside from, it's not good.
Two things. I don't want to do a fiction fix because I don't think you could have to fix it. I think
snake out of pants.
I will take
ritual was said too many times. There was a snake in her
ritual. I said ritual because I had to
they didn't pre-save the barn.
Pause. Part of those things had to move the story along. I said ritual because they were doing things like humming and singing and feeling grass, and I felt like ritual was the best way to describe that.
Horrible.
Because I didn't want to make you sit through that.
I still had to, and yet here we are.
I don't think it needed to be fixed, but I do think you should tell me where they are now because the epilogue was in 73.
They just told us where we are now.
That was 73.
300 years later.
That was 1973. What is happening now in
Actually,
2024? Are they watching the debate?
Race. If no one killed them, then how is the world happening the way that it is?
You think they
eat shit?
You think they would have fixed it so the world was good until 73?
Be so fucking for real. Anytime you're like, oh, I don't think they went to hell. I don't think they died. Really? How are we here then?
We're in hell with them. No,
how are we in the year 2024 and Hailey Bieber stalked Justin Bieber until he had a kid with her? Be so fucking for real.
He married her. This is...
Oh, look at that.
They just wanted to be left alone. They weren't like...
So do I!
They weren't like making the world good. So they could still be there.
Yeah, I would have believed that had they pre-saved the barn, and they didn't. So...
Well, they learned from their lesson and they fixed the cabin.
Did they?
I think they're living in that shaman's cabin.
I don't. I think they got burned down. And if hunters can find their way to it, then they're fucked. There's a snake
Which
in
is
her
probably
pants.
I don't think the snake is still there.
She never removed it.
You don't know that.
That was not explicitly told.
A lot can happen in 300 years.
Secondly,
it wasn't wriggling out. No one ever said it was hanging out like a tampon string. It crawled up her and became one with her as the earth.
Even worse.
How's that worse?
That's so much. Secondly, if they're close enough to civilization that people run into their cabin, there's missing posters around. And that's bad. Like, people have run into them. They run into problems.
So they can go invisible. I left that part out.
They make their whole house invisible.
So what you're saying is that they don't live in that cabin anymore.
Their life has become problematic.
Whatever. You're a fucking hater for no reason. This was
I have a lot of reasons. And the top one was the snake in her pants.
I'm trying to think. Not that she called him daddy.
No.
They called him daddy for the first half of the book.
That's fine.
Oh, that's fine.
People do that. That doesn't bother me. Do whatever you want in the privacy of your own home. Don't put a snake in your pants. You can't do that in the privacy of your own home.
Samson already had a snake in his pants, probably.
I don't like it.
At the calling of Mother Earth.
That's disgusting.
Thank you for listening to Read It and Screech. Oh my god, please rate, review, and subscribe. This one was so much better than a lot of other